Hey guys, it's a Honey Badger. We're going to talk about tools today. We're going to talk about ratchets, ratcheting wrenches, ratchets, extensions, swivels, Phillips head, Torx head, all these tools. If you don't know what I'm talking about, great. Stand by, we're going to walk through all those things. We're going to give you some basic knowledge about tools and what we're going to do with them later on in future projects. As always, if you have some questions, leave the comments below. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. We're going to get going with this video. Okay, we're going to talk about screwdrivers. We have various types of screwdrivers. We're going to go through each one of those for you. That way you have a clear understanding of what the screwdriver is and what they're used for when you're all done here. First, we're going to look at these red-handled ones, which we're going to talk about, and those are going to be called flat-bladed or slotted. So they have various different sizes and different lengths. As you can see, there's a shaft length here, there's also a smaller shaft length here, and there's a smaller shaft length here as well. But also the tips are defined as well as the width or the length of the shaft. The tips width is also the defining factor for a screwdriver. So if I can bring this up here, you look at that, it's pretty narrow. But if you scroll over, it says it's 1/8 inch width. That's the width of that tip there. Move over to this next one, and that's 1/4. Bring that up, and you can see that's a 1/4 inch between the tips. And this other one should be a little less than that, and that's actually 3/16. All right, those are considered slotted or flat-bladed screwdrivers. Depending where you are in the country or in the world is how you're going to hear it defined. Same thing, same screwdriver, just different wording. All right, next is Phillips head screwdrivers. Now these have a Phillips head bit. Now these are called American Phillips. If you want to look at some history of it and how that became about, there's a link down below to the history guy. He's a guy I like to listen to, but he's got a great history on Phillips head screwdrivers. So if that's something that intrigues you, great. If not, move on. All right, now what we're looking for is the size here. Now if you can see there, it says a number 2 Phillips head screwdriver. So that's the size of the bit on this Phillips head screwdriver. We work our way down. This is gonna be a number 1. It says P1. This should be 00. This one says actually it's a P0, so it's a P0 screwdriver. Now, what we didn't talk about with the flatheads is, or the slotted, is there's a thing called a stubby screwdriver, which is really what it is. It's a short screwdriver. Same thing here. There's a define. This is a number 2 stubby. You're out there working on your car with your buddy, and he says, I need a number 2 stubby Phillips. This is what you toss him. All right, now if you start to get into smaller screwdrivers, you're going to need what's called a precision or a jewelry screwdriver kit. There's a bunch of them out there on the internet. You don't really need these until you're doing a lot of fine detail work. You're taking apart things that are electronics is really what it comes down to. And this is also a security one, so they have some odd bits in there as well. We're not going to touch on to all the bits, because that's a whole different subject, but just want to let you know out there that there's a jewelry screwdriver set for when you start to get below that .0 or 00 screwdriver on the Phillips head side or even the flathead side. All right, next. All right, this is what we call a Torx. Now they're based on numbers right there, and that's a T15. That's based on the size of that bit, but that's the same thing. Now these Torx bits, these screwdrivers are for more of, they used to be called security bits, and then they're called regular Torx bits. Torx bits are often used on parts inside of cars that the manufacturer doesn't want you to get easy access to. You know, if you're not going to go grab your slotted or your Phillips and start wrenching away. Now, these things don't require any special license to go buy. You can get them at any home store, hardware store, or wherever you buy your stuff. Again, I use Craftsman. I've been using Craftsman for years. Highly recommend them. They had a few monetary issues in the last few years, but they've made a comeback, so I'd still encourage them. They have a lifetime warranty, so when you break them, and you will break screwdrivers and wrenches and stuff, you break them and stuff, you will have a lifetime warranty. All right, that's Torx bits. All right, now what's on the list is pliers. We're gonna talk about various pliers. These are generic pliers. There's all sorts of various stuff you can buy and get in really deep and get specific pliers for specific jobs. Again, this is basic tools. I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole and start showing you different various pliers that are very specifically designed pliers. That's for later on. We're going to cover those in my various videos that we do things. And you'll figure those out as you start working on things. We're gonna start out here. We're gonna slide these out of the way. First things first is this is just a needle nose pliers. So they are, as you can see, it's a very small, narrowed view of these pliers here. And they also have a cutting implement right there. These are meant for grabbing smaller things, wires, etc. You can also cut with them as well. So these are really handy. You grab these often, and you can never have too many of them in your toolbox. These are straight old pliers. They can be made bigger by slotting that and go from there. As you can see, compared to the needle nose and the other tools you're going to see, these don't look very worn. And the reason why that is being a true mechanic, you don't grab pliers very often. It's a sloppy technique to use pliers for nuts and bolts and things. They're handy for occasional things. You can remove caps with them as far as bottle caps or various things. There's occasions where you'll grab them, but not often. All right, now, what we have these are called side cutter pliers, and what these are is they're designed to cut wires or whatever you want to cut, zip ties or that sort of stuff. These are super handy. As you can see, these are pretty worn. I got the rubber worn off of them. And I've had these for years. That's the thing about tools. If you spend good money on them, they're gonna last for your lifetime as long as you take care of them. Now, I'll admit, all my tools probably need some cleaning, polishing, and some good oiling. As you know from earlier videos, that they've been sitting around in storage. I just haven't taken the time to do that while I'm doing other things. I'll get around to it eventually. Next on the list is called slip joint pliers. So if you look on the back side here, all these joints here, what this does is it allows these pliers to move, become bigger. Now these are very handy if you're trying to take off hose clamps or other clamps. Again, they're not to be a replacement for wrenches or sockets or anything, but we'll talk about that in a minute. These are really handy for their right purpose, and as you can see, they're really well worn. So again, slip joint pliers. In summary, I would say these 4 sets of pliers are probably going to be your most handy to use pliers that you're going to use in your tool set. Now, not all those generic tool sets out there are going to come with these. You can buy these independently, buy them separately, and move up as you need to. If you buy cheap tools that have cheap metal from China or other areas that have cheap metal, you're going to break these things and they're not going to last. So I would encourage you to spend a good amount of money on tools. You don't have to go broke doing it, but don't cheap out and buy the cheapest tools you can buy because they are an investment is really what they are. All right, next up on the list are these called wrenches. So you have various wrenches and we're going to walk through these. They're pretty simple. Not really complicated. There's some little bit of terms, but not real complicated terms. Pretty straightforward. First one you're going to hear is an open end. So really straightforward. That's what it is. The end is open, and you have a nut that'll slide across it. The other end is what's called the box end wrench. Same wrench, it's closed end, boxed end. So you have open end, boxed end. Now, if you look here, it has the size on it. So this one is actually a 13 millimeter wrench. If you grab another one, they'll say 9/16, okay? So they come in SAE as well as metric wrenches. Now we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Now there's the other side of these wrenches here, let me move these out of the way, is there's a new thing out on the market, these fandangled wrenches that I didn't have when I was a kid, and thanks to Dad, shout out to Dad again, for handing me off and buying me these called Ratchet wrenches. Now I'll kind of show you how this works. I have a nut here or a bolt here. Actually, I have a bolt, is what this is. And you put this over the top here, and you can turn. What that allows you to do is never have to take the wrench off that bolt or whatever you're trying to remove. Now, it's kind of cool. You can also do it the other side. You flip it over, loosen it, or tighten it. Depends on how you flip the wrench over and go from there. All right, now here's the funny part. If you've never worked on anything or taken anything apart, there's a simple saying that we all learned. If there's an exception, you're going to find that in your repair manual for your vehicle. Off the top of my head, Dodges are a big fan of using opposite threads, lefty tighty, righty loosey, which is odd, but some vehicles out there have that. Again, you'll find that out in your repair manual as well. Okay, so you have open end, boxed end, and this is a ratcheting boxed end, what this is. Now, I did not have ratcheting wrenches when I grew up, and I have to say that I love them. Now, off the top of my head, I can't come up with a downside to these wrenches. If you are using them in the right manner and not trying to use them too much force, if you're trying to use too much force, you should probably use a different item to remove that item, nut or bolt or whatever you're trying to remove. That's the only thing I can think of, is that you might break this ratcheting device. But other than that, I can't think of a downside to these wrenches. If I was starting out buying wrenches all over again, I'd probably start with ratcheting wrenches and not go the old school way. We'll learn from others. Maybe somebody's got some ideas out there that I don't know about. Okay, now what we have here is a wrench that we're going to talk about later when we do some work on my truck. Now, these are called flared wrenches, open-end flared wrenches. And what they are is these are meant for working on brake lines. Now, if you're out there trying to use 13 millimeter open end versus a 13 millimeter open end flared brake wrench, you're gonna find that this is the right tool to use. This is gonna end up a trip to the hardware store to replace the brake line that you stripped out, and lots of cursing and being angry at yourself. Trust me, these wrenches are worth every dime you're gonna pay for them. We're gonna cover this in it's Badger level 3. We're gonna work on brake lines and brakes. But that's basically what these are for. These are special wrenches. They come in SAE and in millimeter as well. Okay, that covers wrenches. Okay, next on the basic tools, we're going to talk about ratchets, extensions, breaker bars, sockets. What does all this mean? I'm going to break it down step by step for you. All right, first things first, we're going to talk about ratchets. We're going to move all this stuff out of the way. Ratchet is a tool you're going to use to remove bolts and nuts. And what it is, you stick the socket right over the bolt, and then the bolt or the nut is tight, and then you just start moving it this way, and then it keeps moving backwards. Now, like I said, much like the ratcheting boxed end wrench, they're really handy. You don't ever have to take it off the nut or the bolt you're trying to remove. Now, the difference between a boxed end wrench and a ratchet is you're going to have more leverage. As you can see, from here to here is a lot more leverage, and it's beefier compared to this wrench here. So you have a better chance of getting that item off without breaking things and breaking your tools. The key is you have to pick the right ratchet for the job. All right, now what I grabbed here was a 1/2 inch ratchet. Now you flip that over, and it's defined as the dimension between these two. Now here's the confusing part. So you have a 1/2 inch ratchet, but you have a millimeter socket that would fit on there. Remember, the 1/2 inch is defined as this point here. So you hear 1/2 inch wrench, 3/8 wrench, or 1/4 inch wrench. That's defined as the size of the connecting area, face. So as you see, this is a 3/8, and that's this dimension from here to here, and that's 3/8. It's a regular size ratchet here. Now this is the same as a 3/8 ratchet, but it's called a stubby, and it also has a swivel, so you can move this all sorts of directions. I don't know that any of the basic toolkits you're going to buy are going to come with those. Do you need them? No, you don't. But are they handy? Yes, they are. So that's 3/8. Now the next one is for smaller items is 1/4. So that again, that's between this dimension right here, right there. That's 1/4 right there. We'll do it that way. All right, that's 1/4 inch dimension from here to here is a 1/4 inch. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that's the size of the ratchet. Why they do that, I don't know, but that's how it is. I'll look and see what other countries do. I don't know that other countries would do that, because we're the only ones in the US that use SAE dimensions. So I wonder what they do in Japan. Or Germany. Those are overseas. Chime in, leave some comments. We want to learn. All right, next we're going to talk about sockets. So we'll get these ratchets out of the way. We're going to talk about sockets. Now, you have standard depth sockets, very deep sockets, and then you also have some shallow sockets. So this is more of a shallow socket here. It doesn't go very deep. Here's a standard socket here, and this is also called a deep socket right here. Next, what you're going to hear is 12 point versus 6 point. Now those are defined as how many points are in the socket right there. Here's a 12 point, gives you an idea what it looks like. There's 12 points in there. Alrighty, a little chat about 6 point versus 12 point. I want to talk about the advantages of a 6 point versus a 12 point. Now 12 points are really great for if you're trying to get onto a nut or a bolt that's in an area that's hard to see, or you don't exactly can't get it on the right fit. It's going to slide into one of those grooves and drop in. Now 6 point is the advantage is it's going to grab and bite onto all sides of that nut or bolt and have a good grip on it, versus a 12 point, you just got little pieces, just a little suction over there grabbing onto it. So you don't have as much bite on it as or gripping power. So 6 points are better for large force, or you want to break loose a bolt or in tightening a bolt and tighten those up. That's why you'd want to have a 6 versus a 12 point. These are various sockets. Now, again, if you look on the back side of these are the sizes that you're going to look at. So this would be a 1/2 inch socket that would go with your 1/2 inch wrench and just pops in like so. All right. Now these are 3/8. Now you're wondering, how does he know these? Well, after years of experience, you can just see it by eye. Just pop on here like so. Now, some ratchets you're gonna find are gonna have this little button in there, or there's a button on the side. And what that does is it just drops the socket loose and loosens it up, allows you to pull it off. Old school way is you pop it on there and then you pull it off. Now, this ratchet will not allow you to do that without pushing this button. This ratchet does not have that button, so you just pull it off, etc. And that is a function of this ball right there that holds those sockets on. Okay, and then lastly, you have your 1/4 inch ratchet. You have the same thing, 1/4 inch socket will fit on there. Now, on top of all this, you have extra wrenches to work on heavier duty items. And this is called a breaker bar. It's not a ratcheting, it's just a bar is all it really is. It's meant to remove things that are stuck and add more leverage. It goes back to basic high school physics. If you're not in high school, you'll learn it. But that socket will fit on there, and I'll put this breaker bar on there, and you just put your leverage on there and pop it off. Now you see the dimension, the differences between these two. It also prevents you from having to break these ratchets. If you put too much force on these ratchets and torque on them, you can break them. So you use your gut instinct. If you're thinking you put too much force on there, use a breaker bar. And they come in all various sizes. This is a 1/2 inch breaker bar, and this is a 1/4 inch breaker bar. It's so cute. I can't say I've ever used it, and by the looks of it, there's a little bit of rust on there, so it tells me I probably haven't used it very often. I'm not sure why I need a 1/4 inch breaker bar when I can just grab a little bit bigger wrench or ratchet, like a 3/8 or something. All right, now what we're gonna add on to the idea is extension. They're called extensions. So you have a 3/8 ratchet, now you have an extension, and what this does is allow you to stack these together and get further into a hole or into a back area that you can't get to that nut yourself. So you put that on there and go like so, okay? And you can stack these, they get various lengths, and here's an example. Here's a shorter one here, but here's a very long one for a 1/2 inch. And this has a button on the side of it as well to pop that socket loose. Here's an example of a 1/4 inch extension that would fit on here. Okay. Ooh, here's a good example. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear that, but it's not very smooth on the ratchet versus that's a good example of a ratchet going bad. And actually, now that I know about this, I forgot about this. This 1/4 inch ratchet is not the greatest. So it needs to go back. It's a Craftsman. So I'll take this into a Craftsman dealer and swap it out. That's how that works. If you're constantly abusing your tools and turning things in, they're gonna catch on. So use the right tool for the right item. We're gonna walk through that as well. Quick demonstration, I got my 3/8 ratchet. That's the dimension, again, between here and here, with my 14mm socket. So you pop that on there, pop that over this bolt, and I can just turn it as such. That's how that works, okay? You can also flip the lever over right there and then go the opposite direction. So righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So I'm going left, so I should be loosening it. Going right, the socket is actually turning right, so it should be tightening. All right, now next on the list is swivels. Now what this is just really what it is. It's a swivel. So if you get in a tight corner or something not quite 90 degrees, maybe 45, and you need to move things in there, you'll just put your extension on there. You can put your ratchet in there, like so. And then you can put your socket on the end here, put your socket on here, and now you can get to that nut or bolt that you're trying to get off in the corner, you know, to 45 or something like that. You know, true 90s, it doesn't work very well. They start to bind up. You don't want to do that. You want to get a different angle. And that's where you're going to play with things to get different angles. There is no rule about, okay, well, the swivel can't be on the end by the ratchet, and then, okay, I need to move it this way and go from there. The only rule that I would say that applies is generic physics. Trying to do something and adding too much leverage too far away, you're going to end up breaking something. So if you can, use a bigger tool for an item that don't overstress that wrench that you're working on or the swivel. You can break these swivels, and it happens. The other side about that is now they have these swivel sockets. I don't have too many of these. I actually probably only grabbed this one because I got it at an auction or a garage sale or something like that, which is another tip for getting tools. If you're going by garage sales or auctions, tools are tools. You can always clean them up, take the rust off them with a wire brush or a wire wheel and clean them up, add a little bit of oil, and you have tools that are in good shape. They'll always be there for you. Okay, so that's all that stuff there. You got your ratchets, you got your sockets, you got your extensions, you got your deep socket, you got your solid socket, you got your 6-point, 12-point sockets, you got your stubbies, all that stuff. I hope you kind of got a handle on that. I hope I went through it slow enough that if you want to, you can rewind back and take some notes. But I would say the biggest thing for you to learn it is get out there and try it. We're going to talk about later in this episode of where you buy all this stuff and how to get it and the cost. So we'll go over that. Next on the list is something I would debated on showing you guys or not, but they're so handy. And if they're used properly, they're a very useful tool in your toolbox. If you use them the wrong way, they will bite you and you will get yourself into trouble. These are called vice grips. You got a needle nose vice grip. You can see it's got a small nose right there. And then you got a standard regular vice grip here as well. Again, Craftsman style. And I are providing a really good example of how you really should be taking better care of your tools. This is a little bit of surface rust and stuff like that. So really don't follow my example of that. Like I said earlier, they've been sitting in storage, so they probably need a little cleaning. I just haven't got around to it. Now, vice grips are really handy, and the fact is that you can clamp onto something like a vise and hold it, and it's going to hold it right there. Now, if you're using it wrong, what you're going to do, you're going to clamp onto something like this and then just try to use it, and then you'll strip it out. You'll round off the corners of this bolt here, this bolt head, and then you're going to get into trouble. And I guarantee you, I'm going to strip some bolts or break some bolts off in my upcoming videos with my truck, so you can see that and how I repair those. Now, how does the vice grips work? They're pretty straightforward here. Adjustable width here, and the way you do that is you use this screw in the back here to tighten or loosen this dimension right here. Okay. Now what you do is you'll clamp onto something like so, and then you push hard on, you close this, and see I got it too tight, so you just back off a little bit, and you'll hear a nice pop. And what that is that's going to hold that bolt or nut or whatever you're trying to do is hold it. Now again, I repeat, these are not really meant to be used for removing things. These are meant for holding items that are bolts that are trying to turn on the shaft, or you want to clamp onto a cable that you need to pull. That's a good idea for that. Now to release it, you just push this little lever here that sticks out. It says release on there. Pop it out. Springs open and let's go. Vice grips are handy. They're not to be a replacement for box end wrenches or sockets or the proper tool, but they are very capable of holding on to things. If like I wanted to polish this, I would hold on to it and use a wire brush to clean it. Or I want to grab a cable and pull on it, I can use the vice grip to pull. That way you're not trying to use your own hand grip to grip onto something and pull. This is already gripping onto the cable, all you have to do is pull. It's two different functions in your hand and your body mechanics, and it works out better that way. Alrighty. So we covered screwdrivers, we covered wrenches, we covered ratchets, we covered extensions, we covered all that fun stuff. I hope you learned something with this. We're going to continue on. I want to tell you where you should be buying some of this stuff, how much it should cost, and basically what you need for a basic set to get started. Okay, we're going to talk about where we're going to get tools. I brought up just a few of the big name brand places to buy tools. First is up here at Lowe's, and what I did is I put in a search for $100 to $200. Now I use that number based on the fact that the average shop rate for a garage that's going to be working on your car is right at $100. So I figured, well, why don't we use $200 as a baseline, see where we can get for tools. Now if you look around, this is at Lowe's, and now I'm not looking at any specials or anything like that. But you can see you can get an 80-piece toolbox set for $129. You can get a 200-piece for $139. You can get a Craftsman one with a box for $129. And you just move around. Now again, I'm not looking for ads. I'm not looking for sales. If you take your time, you can do better than that. See, here's a nice one. There's a 268-piece for $159. You kind of dig through that and then look through tools that I recommended and see what you have availability for and what that gives you, what your best budget is. Now you go to Home Depot, kind of do the same thing. You can see there's DeWalt tools, there's Husky tools. So you got a DeWalt tool set for $163. Some other ones for $185, $159. There's some wrenches there. Those are real expensive pliers and wrenches. So that's how you get the deal. And then you go over to Ace Hardware, you kind of do the same thing. I did a Craftsman toolbox set, and you can get some for $199, $149. There you go, $179, $119. The other place I mentioned earlier in the show is that you can get stuff off of Facebook Marketplace. Now I just did a Craftsman toolbox search, and you can find all sorts of stuff here. So now we're going to look at Craftsman toolboxes sets and see what we can do. So here's a toolbox set for ASC sockets and metric for $75. Probably not the greatest deal. So if you do a little bit of research and see what you can buy stuff new at Home Depot or Lowe's or Ace Hardware, or so here's a good one here, toolbox with tools. Now we don't know how many tools are in it and what they are, but you just kind of look around and see what's in there, and you might see some tools that you need or don't want or do need, and extra stuff. So that's a pretty good deal. I can tell you there's more than $200 worth of tools in there, and with the toolbox. So you just poke around your local area to see if you can get some good deals. As I mentioned earlier, you can buy them at auctions. You can buy them at garage sales. Tools are tools. They don't go away unless you go with your ex-wife or ex-husband. But other than that, they'll hang around, and you just take care of them, and they'll be there for life. Alrighty, we just walked through a bunch of tools. I hope you have a better understanding what a ratchet and wrench is, what a ratchet, extension, swivels, Phillips, screwdrivers, flathead screwdrivers, all that fun stuff. It's a basic knowledge stuff, so I hope you guys learned something. If I went through it too fast, leave a comment below, leave some questions below. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell thingy. Check me out on Instagram. I'm out there as well. You're gonna find out when future projects start to drop. Some more complex stuff for those guys out there that want some more complex projects. For you guys that are learning to grow up with me as you just watch this tool video, I got some more simple projects coming out as well. Those will hit out there. Check me out on Instagram. You'll see those projects coming out. Again, thank you for everything. I'm enjoying these projects. I hope you guys are too, and I hope you're learning. Have a great day. Talk to you later.